Welcome everyone. Welcome to Business Sweden's pavilion here in Glasgow at COP26. Welcome everyone in the audience who've made yourself comfortable in this lunch session. And also welcome everyone joining us virtually. My name is Modéer Wiking. I'm head of international sustainable business at Business Sweden, the Swedish Trade and Invest Council. I'm going to moderate this session today with you, Robert Andrén. You are the Director General at the Swedish Energy Agency. Welcome to the pavilion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. During this week and also the last week, we've been following the negotiations, but also the protests and also different side events that have been taking place here at COP26, not least on this stage here. We've heard academia, different stakeholders from the government, business leaders, and not least also NGOs and youth representatives that have been discussing the necessary actions to reach the targets and also to keep 1.5 alive. And considering that 70% of the global emissions that they are all energy related, your role is quite crucial and interesting. So I would like to start by asking you if you could please describe your role as a Director General at the Swedish Energy Agency and also what your top priorities are to accelerate the green transition and reduce CO2 emissions both in Sweden but also globally.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. No, I think that what we can do with the toolbox we have, which is from the research to innovation to export projects, also to look at the whole energy system and how it relates to each other, because at the moment we're talking in Sweden perhaps a bit about electricity, but that's just one part. You have heat, you have cooling, and I think what we can do is actually to show that innovative solutions that will be helping societies from different points of departure to actually find a smart way forward in using natural resources, in using the existing systems they have actually. That is one thing. The other thing is to actually also help actors to meet, actors that actually can do something, can do difference in Sweden but also abroad. And in emerging markets, for instance, to get them to have soft landing programs for them to be there to actually facilitate the clean energy transition that we so badly need on all levels.
Could you perhaps give concrete examples of how we possibly could support other countries, such as emerging markets, with their transformation?
For instance, we have a joint project in India together with our colleagues there, and it's about smart grids. So it's a joint project with 5 million euros in totally, where you can apply to, build a new way of transforming the energy system, the electricity system in India. So that's a concrete project, and we've seen a huge interest, and we have, at the moment, we are looking at the different applications. In Indonesia, we have the same. We have common programs that get different actors to meet. And I think that's a key in the future.
Indeed. And you mentioned a few projects and programs, and you have also initiated an initiative called Viable Cities that will allow and enable more cities to become climate neutral. Could you please tell us a little bit about that and what possibly global effects this initiative could contribute with?
Well, I think that we have found a way forward in order to find a collaboration between the national level and the local level that actually works. We have pinpointed our different responsibilities and our different possibilities to work together. And I think in many other countries there is a huge gap between the national level and the local level. And what we can do, I think, is show how you can do it, how can you engage, equip and empower the local communities to become climate neutral. So we have a model of cooperation that we can share, but then you have within the different cities, we have now 23 cities involved in this project, including the 4 biggest cities in Sweden. I think that you can also look at different technical solutions like mobility that is fossil-free, or you have how you build new residential areas, for instance, in an energy-efficient, resource-efficient way. So.
And then what is your role from the Swedish Energy Agency, and what would be the private sector's role within Viable City initiative?
I think what we are doing is we are creating both the frames for the collaboration within the programs. We are co-funding the program as such, because you need to co-fund. You need to look at how you share the risks when it comes to financial perspectives. And we also create platforms and arenas for the stakeholders to meet across borders. We have new actors in the energy system today due to digitalization and electrification. And you need to get them to meet the traditional ones. And then something happens. Magic, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, that's right. We often, when we talk about our actions to keep 1.5 alive, we talk about the need to accelerate the green transition by scaling up green sustainable solutions and disruptive technologies, but also mobilize green finance. We need new standards and regulations, and also more good leadership and partnerships. And if we start just with the green technologies, how could Sweden contribute and support other countries in their transformation? You touched upon it a little bit already, but if you perhaps could tell us a little bit about the Swedish Energy Agency's role, but also the private sector's role from Sweden to support the global climate transition.
Well, I think it's basically the same mechanisms, but then you need to understand how it works in other parts of the world, in other markets. I think what we are trying to do is finding soft landing programs, so our clean tech companies, our startups, and even our big companies can find the right ways in with their ideas and solutions. So that is one thing that we can help with when it comes to the energy sector, because we are working with a lot of small and medium-sized companies, with a lot of startups, deep tech and clean tech companies, and they are not used to work on a global level, and we can help them. We have, for instance, created a showroom in New Delhi where they can display their ideas, solutions and innovations for stakeholders in India, for instance, to understand how does the product work. And another thing I think that we can do is also to export our policy development, our regulatory system, because you can not only apply technology and technological solutions, you also have to have a capacity building when it comes to policy, regulations, that also facilitates business models that you need as well.
And what would you say would be the largest blockers or challenges in order to support these countries or to actually accelerate the green transition globally from your perspective?
I think it's two things. First of all, perhaps sometimes we do not understand where they are coming from actually, and the problems or challenges that they have on their market as such. And the other thing is actually also that we are kind of locked up in an old way of thinking of this, more of a donor receiver instead of a joint collaboration on equal terms, because we can learn a lot from many of those countries as well. We have our solutions are not so easy to evolve or change, but there we can build new solutions that are very effective that we can then take home and practice at home as well. But we cannot have Sweden as a testbed at the moment.
Could you give us a concrete example of what we can learn from other countries?
I think that we can learn, for instance, when it comes to solar panels, when it comes to microgrids, finding new ways of securing electricity instead of just relying on the existing grids, the state grids or the regional grids that we have in Sweden, and local grids, for instance, to find new solutions to build the smart homes, the smart residential areas, for instance, where you not necessarily need to rely on the national grid every time.
Interesting. And you at the Swedish Energy Agency, you have a unique mandate, I'd say, to develop international climate collaborations related to emission trading systems between different countries. And this is, of course, a key point or main point in the climate negotiations going on right now, not least within Article 6 in the Paris Agreement. Could you please tell us a little bit about your role, what and how you can contribute to speed up the green transition in the way that the trading systems possibly could be implemented?
Well, I'm not actually so into the details, but what I can say is that I think that this COP needs to resolve the Article 6 issue in total, because that's where we need that to be able to move on, to be able to actually try to start to find collaborations, find mechanisms in the future. But it's a very intricate and complex negotiation, I understand as well. But we have our experts from the agency there trying to help to find smart ways forward when it comes to, from the energy perspective. And I think that is what we are doing at the moment now. It's very important.
And later today you will sign an MOU with Ghana related to trading systems. Could you please tell us a little bit about that?
Well, what we have done, I think that is a way of spearheading the future in a way. We cannot sit and wait on Article 6 and the final details to be adopted. Because if it doesn't happen here, then when? So we are now saying that, let's move on anyway. Let's find a way forward to have a learning process by having this memorandum of understanding that we will cooperate regardless of the final outcomes of Article 6. And we will find concrete projects in Ghana that will facilitate both our country's climate ambitions.
I think that's really inspiring. We've heard several stakeholders here talking about the urgency and also the eagerness to do things. And of course, the negotiations here are extremely important. But whatever the outcome will be, you're going to continue driving this force forward. And I think this MOU between Sweden or the Swedish Energy Agency and Ghana is an extremely good example of that you're already doing this. It's not something that it's perhaps going to happen after this negotiation. It's already happening. That's really inspiring. And something else that is inspiring, we heard Obama yesterday talking here at COP26 about the importance of turning commitments into actions. And we also have Biden's new administration that has rejoined the Paris Agreement and also initiated a lot of new investments for a green transition. What does that really mean to the world? And how do you think that Sweden perhaps could support US with their green transition?
Well, I think that the signals coming from the US now, which is a complete different signal compared to the last 4 years, what is happening with the new Green Deal in the European Union, what happens in several countries where you have these new green packages, I think those signals are they're so important for the climate, but also for the world community to collaborate. I think what Sweden can do is join hands and see how we can use that, how we can facilitate and share our experience, our solutions in other countries, but also then gain the possibility for our companies and our business to be there, to explore new markets. So it's a win-win in many ways. And I was just talking to my former US colleague at the IEA, the International Energy Agency, who's now back at the Department of Energy, and we said that, let's join hands and see what we can do together. And I think that's very good, and that goes hand in hand with what we are doing with Business Sweden and Vinnova now, for instance, joining hands and see what we can move things forward on the US markets. But it's the same on the other. You have Korea and you have India. So I think the signals are saying, come on, let's join hands now and
pioneer the possible.
Of course, and we have the innovations that we need in order to move forward quite rapidly if we deploy them today on the market and commercialize them. Not all, but so much we can do already. So we can't wait for negotiations only.
And speaking about the negotiations, what are your expectations and what outcomes from COP26 do you hope for?
Well, first of all, on a macro level, I hope that we can see global leadership, both among the governments, but also between governments and industry. And I think that I hope that industry, out from COP26, that we will see that the signals from industry will just multiply, and we will see industry saying, we are moving on, come on governments, follow us. I think that would be, I hope that will be accelerated. And I hope that the leaders actually do agree on the Paris Agreement. I think the alternative is quite sad.
Indeed. And what key actions do you think are needed to then accelerate the green transformation even further?
Well, I think it's a... Someone said that the challenge is not to get people to agree to new things. The challenge is to get them to stop doing what they've always done. And I think it's a mental barrier here that we need to overcome, that the transition as such is something that costs more than you get from it. I think that the cost of inaction is immense, much more than any transition will be in the long run. And I think that we need to be better storytellers, explaining that the clean energy transition will result in a better life for most people on Earth. Social welfare, economic growth, and high environmental standards goes hand in hand. Sweden has shown that with a GDP increase and carbon emission decoupling.
Would you say that the transformation is fast enough?
Oh, that's a difficult question. We can always say no, and in some aspects it's not. But on the other hand, there is so much happening, but we do not actually accumulate it and look at the whole picture. Because there is transition going on at the moment, locally, regionally, and in many countries. So I say, well, not enough.
Are you hopeful that we will make it?
We will make it. The question is just how much it relates to the global warming.
Indeed. I would like to turn to the audience, and I wonder if there's anyone who have any questions for Robert Andrén. Please, could we please have a microphone for the gentleman in the front?
Thank you very much for a really interesting session here. Robert, you mentioned innovations, and you have a very active role in actually accelerating innovations in Sweden. What do you think will be game-changing innovations, which I know you are a part of at the moment?
Well, I think that when we are looking at innovations that are not component by component innovations, but are linking systems together, so you have these innovations that actually move larger chunks of how we work and do things at the local community or at the national level or in industrial perspective. I think that is the game changers. The incremental innovation way of doing it will not do that. But when you merge them and you can see that the system is moving, the whole system, that is one thing, for instance. And we have those examples, for instance, that when you turn excess heat into green electricity through water, where you can change the whole energy efficiency within an industrial plant or a ship, for instance, that's fantastic. That's a game changer. Could be, at least.
Can I ask a follow-up question there?
Please.
I think what we're seeing now and where Sweden is ranked high is within energy storage and batteries. And I've seen you also been active in the battery field with innovations for recycling and so forth. Is that something that you think will continue, and do you see Sweden taking a role there in this fast-growing battery industry?
Yes, for sure. Together with other components relating to energy storage, like hydrogen in the future as well. At the moment, I think that what we need to do is to see how these interlink in the new electricity system, in the new energy system. But we will. But there is also risk if you are kind of focused too much on one component again, that battery, and dislink it from the other progress you are making in other areas. So we have to keep them together and see how they are interlinkaged for the future system.
On that note, I would like to thank you, Robert, for coming today and sharing your work on how you can speed up the green transition both in Sweden and internationally. It's been very interesting to hear your thoughts of this. So I would like to thank you, but also wish you good luck in the race to zero and also to pioneer the possible. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for the audience, and thank you everyone for tuning in virtually. Thank you.
Thank you.